start planning ahead of time, start networking and just making connections in the community so that when it is time, you feel like, okay, it's almost time to hire. You can kind of start more naturally instead of panicking.
I love bookkeeping.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for listening to the I Love Bookkeeping podcast. My name is Hannah Robinson.
And I'm Melissa Honan.
And thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a new episode out every Tuesday and Thursday. Today, we're going to be continuing our series on how to hire, and we're going to be diving into interviewing. Interviewing can be a daunting process, I feel like, and it can be really intimidating, especially if you're not used to interviewing. So I think having a lot of clarity on what you need, the role you're looking for, and also the type of person that you're looking for, and just being very niched with the type of employee or subcontractor that you're seeking. I think that's one of like the best first steps that you can take when it comes to interviewing.
1,000%. And honestly, I really think that a lot of people kind of shoot from the hip when they're interviewing. They don't necessarily have like a good plan in place. They're just kind of waiting for, oh yeah, when I know, I'll know. But having like a really clear-cut process for how to interview and what those steps are going to be is, I think, really key in managing the expectations of those that are interviewing, but also will kind of keep you in check to make sure you follow your own process, which has you like set up for success to find the right person.
Right. Well, and I think if you're new to the interviewing process and you're new to hiring, I think it can be really kind of intimidating, and you just are you kind of get to a point where you're desperate for help, right? And so you maybe lower your expectations when it comes to interviewing. And really that usually turns around and kind of bites you in the ass in the long run.
Every single time. Every single time I panic hire, it's a terrible idea. So, I think we've talked about this before, Hannah. Don't wait until you need to panic hire. Start planning ahead of time, start networking and just making connections in the community so that when it is time, you feel like, okay, it's almost time to hire. You can kind of start more naturally instead of panicking. Oh my gosh, I have 2 times as many clients as I should. And now I just need to get a warm body in here. A warm body is the worst idea you guys can do. I've done it, especially when it comes to bookkeeping. And I'll tell you right now, paying somebody that actually knows what they're doing to clean it up will be more expensive later.
What are some ways that you can get that those who are listening, what are some ways they can get really kind of clear on how to vet somebody in an interview so that they can best hire for what they're looking for?
Yeah, I stole this from just everyone on the internet. And so that would be my advice is Google other people's hiring practices or recommendations for hiring and pick and choose what you like from all the different places, right? It's not intellectual property and they're sharing it freely on the internet. So just take their process. One thing I will say as far as when, a lot of times your first hire is going to be a bookkeeper is that the difference here between interviewing for a bookkeeper and interviewing, for any other position you're going to find on the internet is that there is a level of skill that they need to have, right? And so for that, I always highly recommend a bookkeeping practical interview. This is something that we have an outline on how to do it. You could take things from the QuickBooks exams. You can take things from BBL. You can just, make it up on your own, but you do want to check that bookkeepers actually know how to bookkeep and have them do it in front of you and show you.
Yeah. And what are some of the red flags and the green flags of personality traits that you're looking for in somebody that you're interviewing that tell you that they're a good fit or tell you that they're not a good fit?
So if I'm going with bookkeepers, because I think it's different for every position. So I'm going to go with bookkeepers because I think that'll help the most people. And think about what makes you a good bookkeeper. Assuming you're a good bookkeeper, I'm not, right? So I think about all the things that I'm terrible at, right? Attention to detail. And so, we talked about this in the job description and the job posting about having that like little hidden nugget about putting a specific subject line, or, make sure you mention the color purple, whatever it is. But a big, big, big red flag is if they cannot follow instructions. If they cannot follow, application and interview instructions, what makes you think they're going to be able to follow your bookkeeping process? So that to me is the biggest red flag. If I notice that somebody drops the ball on attention to detail once during the interview process, that's it for me. And I used to be much more forgiving on this. And every single time I gave someone a second chance on this, they proved to me that they did not have the attention to detail that they needed. So that's the biggest, I think, red flag for me. Green flag is anytime a candidate sends either like an email ahead of the interview or after the interview. So like sending an email just saying, hey, I really look forward to meeting with you on Thursday, blah, 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 whatever. That I've seen so many different versions of that. And then also like a thank you email that's like, I just wanted to thank you again for meeting with me. And I want to reiterate that I'm interested in this position, that type of thing. That is such a green flag to me, because it just is like, that's like the old school professionalism, like we don't do that stuff as much anymore, right? Because we don't have to you used to have to go in and actually get a paper application and fill out a paper application and then send a handwritten thank you note, all this different stuff that you used to do. So for me, when you go above and beyond, and you try to make that connection either before or after the interview, it just shows me not only that you're bought in and you're interested, but that you have a level of professionalism that I will not have to ask you for. You are doing it on your own. That is such a green flag for me.
I also feel like that a lot of the times when you're doing the panic interview, you tend to overlook and settle. And really you should, it's kind of like dating almost. You need to
it's worse. It's worse than dating.
Except it's worse.
It's so much worse.
Because it's like you need to pay attention to the actions that actually back up the person that you're looking to hire. I feel like looking at actions are so much more important than looking at words and looking at, obviously resumes are extremely important to look at, but I think the proof is in the pudding, and you need to look at what kind of value this person can bring to your team and if it's going to be a long-term good fit, because ultimately you don't want that high turnover, right? Nobody wants to hire someone and realize, oh, well, I overlooked this. I shouldn't have overlooked this, even though there are kind of some signs, maybe there weren't. I think it's really rare that you get totally catfished in an interview.
And that's the reason why I say that it's worse than dating specifically. And I have gone on such a rant about this to all of my friends. That was like, if I end up divorced, I will just die alone. I will never date again. So for me to say that this is worse than dating, you got to know. And the reason I say that is because it has to do with money. And I am so financially motivated. We've talked about motivation for employees before. I think quite a few series ago, I remember we talked about this, how not everyone's financially motivated, and you have to find, do they want positive reinforcement or do they want, negative reinforcement? I am financially motivated. If you put dollar signs in what you want me to do, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. I want money. And it's just because I think of the way that I grew up. I didn't have money when I grew up. And so to me, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go and I'm going to get money because that makes the world go round. Anyway, I think that it's worse than dating because of the cost associated to if you mess this up, right? You mess up a date, whatever, find another, there's 1,000 fish in the sea. You mess up and hire the wrong person, start calculating that as a small business owner. Not only your time spent in the interviewing process, but all of the salary that you're paying them while they work for you and they're not performing. Then also your time spent times the dollar amount that you could be selling or doing marketing or, money, making operations. And then think about, they don't work out, you have to let them go. Then you're potentially having to pay them unemployment. Then you have to start your hiring process again. And so it just costs you, what, 20 grand? Like we're serious. Like we're not talking, and like, it's one thing. And I think I've been interviewing a lot lately. And I think that some people from the bookkeeper launch community, we are a big company, but we're still a small business. So it's not like you're interviewing for, one of the big four accounting firms. Like, I don't have an endless budget. And it is a huge difference in, I guess, what is possible, I think, or what's feasible when you're interviewing for a small firm. And you really like, if we're making an offer to you, you gotta know, like, you killed it, because, KPMG, $20, $30, $40,000 an employee doesn't work out, whatever. Like, that's a huge deal. Like, think about that, guys. Like, especially for those of you that are just starting off, you got $5,000 in, monthly recurring revenue. You're going to pay somebody, say, $2,500 a month. They don't work out and you're out, what, 10, 15 grand? That's insane. So you really, like, I'm just going through this and really just like beating a dead horse. I have to remember like the PETA approved version of that saying. But but beating a dead horse, just to say, like, do not panic. Like, even if you are so late, you have not done your due diligence, you're just behind the boat. Do whatever you can to slow it down and still take the time to interview. Because I'm telling you right now, it's going to cost you so much money. And again, I've been there. I can think of 2 times where I had account managers and I added it up. And in a year, it was close to over about $120,000 that essentially we just threw in the trash.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And that's a common mistake that a lot of people make starting out in the interviewing process.
The red flags were there, guys. The red flags were there. I look back and I'm like, oh, those were lots of red flags, like, but I was desperate.
That was a bad ex-boyfriend. That was a bad one.
Exactly.
So for those who are listening who maybe have already hired and they've made some mistakes along the way in the interviewing process, what would be your biggest piece of advice because I know you've gone through this, for kind of changing your interviewing process to be more, I guess, quality over quantity?
Yeah. Ask the people that you hire. That's literally what we did for, I think, 3 or 4 different rounds when we were onboarding new employees and subcontractors. Is what was the interviewing process like for you, and what was the onboarding process, and how could it be better? And then we just every single time took all of their feedback and improved. So, before looking externally or before racking your brain, like, ask the people that are actually going through it. And that's going to be the best advice that you can take.
Yeah. Well, and I also feel like if you ask your current employees, they're able to provide that, not necessarily criticism, but they can give you some feedback on what's working and what's not working. Because I think as a boss, you have your tunnel vision and you're not experiencing the same things that your employees are experiencing.
Exactly. I think also too, because we're on the other end, whereas when was the last time you interviewed anywhere, Hannah?
Oh my God.
So I think that's the thing too. Think about the last time, like, as a business owner, especially, like, I have not interviewed for a job in 11 years.
Jeez.
Maybe longer.
I think it's been like 6 or 7 years for me.
Yeah. So you talk to the people that are actually interviewing.
Yeah.
Because we don't remember. We're ancient. We don't remember what it's like.
Yeah. God. So another question kind of on the flip side, when you're in an interview and the person interviewing you, let's say you're the prospective employee, the person interviewing you says, "What questions do you have for me?"
Oh, dude, Google this. I love this. Seriously, Google what to ask at the end of an interview. Because I've read so many different things on it that you shouldn't just say you don't have any questions, because everyone has questions at some point, right? And it just makes you seem like agreeable, but also as if you're like not taking it seriously. Like, there's a lot of psychology behind it. But I've Googled those questions. There's a lot of great questions. And I have to say, as the person on the other side, I see a significant difference in the candidates that just say, no, no questions, everything's fine, versus those that actually have questions about our work culture, the expectations of the job. How often are there performance reviews? Is this a new position or are we replacing somebody? I just see such a difference in the level of professionalism, but also, I guess, how serious they take the position, because interviewing is two ways, right? I really believe that candidates are interviewing our company just as much as we're interviewing them.
Yeah. So can you share some green flag questions and red flag questions that people ask when you typically ask that question as the interviewer?
Huh. I can't think of any red flag questions. I've had a lot of asking, because our benefits are different than if you're working for a big firm, right? We don't have health insurance. We have QSERA, which is a health reimbursement. And then we have the self-care reimbursement, and the different benefits that we offer. A lot of people just ask for clarity on what those mean. And some super big people that are known in interviewing say applicants shouldn't talk about pay in the first interview. I think that's bullshit. It's not a red flag to me in any way. I want to make sure that, the compensation will be good for both of us, because I don't want to waste my time. Unfortunately, I've done that a few times where I've gone through an entire process and then realized I can't even come close to what they want to make. So for me, I think any question is a green flag to know that people are really considering, if people are asking you further questions, they're interested. So to me, it's okay, you're interested in my company. I'm willing to answer anything you've got.
It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I feel like I've had job interviews where I black out as the employee. I just totally black out because I'm nervous. I'm not great under pressure. And, or used to when I was younger and less confident. Yeah. I thought that not asking questions was the right thing to do, because they didn't want to waste their time hearing me talk. And then now looking back, I'm I could have avoided so many traumatic situations.
So many.
By asking questions.
So I was the same way, because we've talked about this before. I'm not just an introvert, but I am naturally shy, really awkward. And I always thought, just like you, Hannah, I was I need to be more agreeable, right? People don't, if I ask questions, I'll be seen as, disagreeable or a problem, or I'm going to be an issue for them. Right. And I want to show them that I can conform, and I'll be this perfect employee that never asks them anything. It was so stupid. I was so young and naive. That's why I do go on so many rants about how much I love this new young generation that gives zero fucks about anything, because I was taken advantage of so much when I was younger.
Me too.
And I let it happen because I was this is the way that it's supposed to be. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. Me too. And not everybody who takes the course and wants to be a bookkeeper ends up owning their own business. So I think it's good to hear the flip side of how to seek out the right option for you when it comes to interviewing. And I think part of nailing an interview is really making sure that you're a good fit with the person that's interviewing you.
Yeah. And I want to circle back to pay rates too. We'll have to talk about that during the next episode, about, if you decide that business ownership's not for you and you're going to look for a job, because I've noticed some huge discrepancies in those, pay rates of people basically charging, the bookkeeping calculator prices as a subcontractor. And we need to talk about how that's not what that's meant to do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. If you're anybody listening, take our advice. Don't learn from our mistakes. Don't work somewhere that you hate your life because you didn't ask any questions.
Yes.
And I think on both ends of the interview, I think paying attention to the actions is one of the most important things you can do. We hope you've enjoyed this little quick episode on interviewing. during the hiring process. If you have comments, questions, concerns, or you just want to talk to us, you can shoot us an email at hello@ilovebookkeeping.com. Again, that's hello@ilovebookkeeping.com. We have new episodes out every Tuesday and Thursday, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts for Android. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Hannah Robinson.
And I'm Melissa Honan.
And thank you so much for listening to the I Love Bookkeeping podcast.
I love bookkeeping. Here's a little shout to all my friends working hard at keeping the books. You want to change your life, you want to grow that biz, it's not as hard as it looks. Be a money guide, a profit coach, step up your game and see. You'll be working less and making more.